What's going on there, guys? Good morning, good afternoon. It's the Earthmaster here on this Thursday, November 24th, 2022. About 11:35 a.m. California time here. Happy Thanksgiving to those who celebrate today. Latest earthquake shows a 4.5 earthquake into the area of Texas. Latest earthquake coming in here to the globe. Let's go ahead and check out the latest activity here across the North American plate. 4.5 coming in just within the past 15 minutes or so, just outside of Pecos, Texas, in our swarming area, an area that sees quite a bit of earthquake activity here. And it is in a field of some oil pumping operations out here. Let's go ahead and check out specifically on the satellite map here, showing some, should say not really drawings, but lines across the map here, and some swimming pools out in the desert, right? No, those are wastewater ponds, and this is a huge oil field, and wastewater injection process is pretty high out here in this area of Texas. This 4.5 down there at about 7 kilometers deep. Now, if we go back the last 30 days of activity here for this region, you'll see what I'm talking about when I say earthquake country of Texas. Looking at about 261 earthquakes in the last 30 days. It looks like we just had another 4.5 coming in here, two of them. In fact, another one just popped up here on the map. Let's check this out, see if this is going to stand as two earthquakes. This event has been reviewed, and see what we got for the other one here. The later one, it looks like two different locations as well. This one has been reviewed as well, 14 kilometers deep. Now that's getting deep. Most of the earthquakes there with the fracking processes range from anywhere up at the surface down to about 7 kilometers. So this earthquake activity getting deeper in this region. Now it is, looks like it's about 2 miles. This latest 4.5 struck about 2 miles north of the one that just struck here about 5 minutes prior. So two 4.5s coming in right now to the Texas area. That's wow, that's just a lot of activity. Let me double check and see, make sure. Unfortunately, I don't have any Texas stations keyed up out here as far as the seismographs go. I may look into that and see if I can't pull up something out here in this area of Texas to watch these quakes. Pretty active. So two earthquakes, two 4.5s, one somewhat shallow and one deep in the same area where we've seen the 5.4. About the middle of this month here, about a week or so ago, we've seen that 5.4, one of the larger earthquakes here in Texas in a while. 6.9 kilometers deep, but they're all within that area, and it's just really compacted out here. Far as the pumping operations out here in the wastewater injection disposal wells. A lot going on out here and underneath the ground. And I believe these here are the older ones. Some of them are older, even though some of these ponds look like they're still in operation. Some of the newer features over here to the northeast, and there's just hundreds, actually thousands of them, if you really look at how many there are from space, satellite images. And I see them also when I fly over here to the Texas area during storm season. There's just a massive amount of them, and you can't help but wonder what's it doing here to the strain along the North American plate here. There is, a lot of statistics and graphs that back up the relation of these wastewater disposal wells and oil pumping operations in relation to the frequency and magnitudes of earthquakes. That's 100% fact. And today, it's pretty well given there with those two 4.5s kicking off there in the oil fields and wastewater disposal areas. Pretty active today. So, and looking at the map here, we really haven't seen a whole lot of westward displacement here of the energy, the Pacific Plate energy here. Overnight, looks like we've seen a little bit of activity into the Tonga region, but the majority of these quakes here from yesterday along the Kermadec Trench, Tonga region. So it tells me right there strain is still building up here along the eastern Pacific plate and potentially up here along the northern section as well. These inland quakes a lot tell me right there this area is under quite a bit of strain up against the, well, this is well inland into areas of Texas. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing maybe Oklahoma show some further movement, and maybe the New Madrid zone. They did see one little 2.3 last night in Missouri, New Madrid seismic hazard zone in the area of last night's 2.3, but we've seen some activity kind of ramping up last night around the Southern California area. That was I was expecting to see a bigger quake overnight here, but it didn't look like it happened. We did have a 4.2 come in off the coast of Baja California, and also some noticeable increasing activity here into Southern California. One earthquake right smack dab on the Brawley seismic zone, just shy of the San Andreas fault here. That was a 3.2 coming in at 10 kilometers deep. I was either expecting to see or hear about a larger earthquake down here overnight or see a swarm of activity, but haven't seen any of those yet. A lot of times we get these swarms kicking off here in the Imperial Fault System, Brawley seismic zone, and awfully close to the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault, which sits right here in this darker color line. The southern segment there is the one that's been building up, you know, little stories that have been passed down talking about the big one in Southern California one day. That's the segment that's going to go, possibly produce an 8.1 magnitude earthquake. It's been over 300 and something years since the last rupture on that thing. So I watch for these little swarms. I watch for earthquakes in and around this area, and it was definitely ramping up last night. But so far, looks like things are holding steady. No major swarms noted. A little 0.7 along the just off the San Jacinto. One of the two. Pick your choice. I think it's San Jacinto. It also depends on who you ask. Had a couple comments there saying that San Jacinto is spelled San Ha, H-U-H Cinto. So we'll just kind of pronounce them both until I can get a confirmation of which is right. Either way, a little bit of fault movement there, a little bit of buildup of pressure along those segments, and some activity just off the Elsinore fault system as well. A couple small microquakes. But overall, definitely regional pressure has been pretty great in this area. Let me go back the last 7 days. Of course, we've seen that 6.2 off the coast of Baja with a little bit of migration here to the north recently. And that's kind of why I've been watching this area of Southern California. And I'm going to continue to leave the earthquake watch up here for this area until we see a little bit of further larger scale adjustment over here along the western Pacific, or possibly adjacent plates where the pressure transfer could be headed, and that would be areas to the west here up around Bangkok and Java Trench area, possibly up into the area around the Myanmar area. So we'll watch that for some potential movement. But a lot of times when we see westward pressure here, let me pull up this, these plates here tend to show, when they do show some larger activity, that's not the best drawing, but we got that west-northwestward pressure movement here that kind of puts a lot of strain on this area. And when we see all that activity kind of kick up in a large-scale basis, it relieves pressure over here on the eastern section of the plate temporarily. It seems as though things really build up here and remain awfully quiet, and pressure up here along the west coast, Gulf of Alaska region, tends to kick up. It's that teeter-totter effect I talk about a lot here on this channel, and today it looks like one of those days that is kind of in full force here towards the western portion of the states and inland. A lot of times we'll see some activity up here in Yellowstone as well. Let me see what we got for the Yellowstone activity. doesn't look like there's a whole lot. There's I'm not for sure what that is. Doesn't look like it's anything noteworthy, considering it's only shown up on one station. But far as local seismic activity goes, up here at Yellowstone, I'm not seeing a whole lot. But as I was saying, a lot of times we'll see swarms kick up here into the Yellowstone area during times of heightened earthquake pressure activity out here along the west coast. But it doesn't look like it right now. Excuse me. So we'll definitely focus here on the southern portion of the state. Kind of looks like that's where it's at currently. Not a whole lot of activity up through the Pacific Northwest, Idaho either. It almost shows like this just general area kind of seeing a lot of strain. And that would also put a lot of pressure out here along the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault, the plate boundary. But who knows if it's enough, if there's enough pressure built up for the big one. Either way, something to watch pretty closely today. And until we see some further activity westward, we'll keep an eye on the California area. Throughout the Caribbean plate, not a whole lot going on. Let me pull up the EMSC model and see what we have here. Hold on a second here. Let me go back here to Texas because I wanted to see how many earthquakes we've had so far, 24-hour period. Looks like 4. And over the last 7 days, got about 81 earthquakes here around Texas, Pecos, Texas area. Ooh, that got upgraded to a 4.9. Whew. So, a little bit of an upgrade with that earthquake, but also a adjustment here with the depth of the earthquake down to about 7.9 kilometers instead of the 14. And it looks like it's a little bit of adjustment on the location as well, but still awfully close to each other. And activity, definitely picking up out there in those fields. All right, let's see here. Let me look at the rest of the globe, see what we got. For activity, a little bit of movement into the Mexico area. It looks like a 4.1 down here. Let me see if the USGS has it. No, they don't. See, these earthquakes I like to utilize to get a bigger picture of the story that's being told out here with the pressure being great across this region. Throw in a 4.1 and some other quakes not listed up here on the USGS map, and it paints a more clearer picture. But yeah, it definitely looks like there's 4.1, some activity down south here as well into the Nicaragua, Costa Rica area, possibly down here as well. Seen some 4s and 3s. Puerto Rico area has got a bunch of activity as well overnight. It looks like some 2s and some other smaller quakes. See what we got here. Getting a little bit of swarming up around the Puerto Rico Trench once again with some 3s, upper 3s, north of the Virgin Islands area. And typical swarming around the Puerto Rico area. This is actually picking up pretty nicely. It looks like down around the southwestern portion here of Puerto Rico. So again, when it's quiet over here, Eastern Pacific and adjacent plates here, that would include the Caribbean area, Cocos Plate, Nazca Plate really hasn't shown a whole lot of activity currently up against the South America region, but there is definitely some activity. 4.4, couple 4.9s here onto the northern segment here of the Peru-Chile Trench. So, I think it's pretty obvious the story that's being told here today along this area. And some of that movement, again, missing off of the map here from the USGS. I get it, it's a holiday, but it seems to be happening a lot. All right, let's move on here a little bit. This activity here, remember, most of it here is from yesterday. The earthquakes that we did see, looks like there was a couple more 5s earlier this morning, much prior to all this activity happening there on the North American plate. Outside of Manila, that one actually came in this morning as well. It looks like a 5.1. All this activity happened, seems like around 7 o'clock or so. A couple of these quakes here along the Pacific plate and the Filipino plate But since then, it's stopped, and that's why we're seeing that teeter-totter effect kind of bounce along the east or the west coast here. 4.9 off the coast of Russia from yesterday. It's an older movement back over that way. Alaska. See what we got. 2.4 just coming in the last hour. Just outside of Anchorage to the northwest. 73 kilometers deep. The rest of the world, pretty quiet over here across the Iran region. Cyprus did see a 4.3 last night. One earthquake this morning, right around 7 something again in Iran, that 4.3. Up in let's see, what do we got here? Yeah, these came in yesterday up around the Greenland Sea. Way northern Atlantic area, north of Iceland area, all quiet for now. South Sandwich Trench pretty quiet as well. So, yeah, I would definitely be watching the west coast currently. Got a little bit more activity coming in here as we speak to the Salton Sea area. We were just chatting about that, about this area being under some pressure. Just off the southern branch here of the San Andreas Fault, a little bit more closer as well. Someone was asking what it would take, what kind of magnitude would it take to possibly trigger this thing. Well, we know there's definitely been a lot of stress built up here in this area for an extended amount of time. It's been chatted about, looked at, and whatnot for a long period. Here's the last 30 days of all magnitude. So we've seen swarms down here in the past, and some awfully close here to the southern branch here of the San Andreas Fault. But as you can see there, it's still mainly quiet. Look at that. Really not a whole lot of activity on there. So I think, even if we were to see like maybe possibly a 4 on it, or maybe a 4.5 directly on it, that could definitely be a foreshock to something much bigger. An 8.1 is a big quake. Let's go over here and check, see how many 4.5s have picked up here along this area. And we're going to draw a rectangle on this map here. It's kind of a cool little feature USGS has, so that you can search the earthquake catalog book, which is pretty cool. We're missing our plate boundary, but that's all right. We can kind of see it here on the map still. I'm just going to go down here and see what we have. See what's been recorded. So, yeah, definitely nothing. Look at that, 4.5 since the recordings have began here, since I just typed in 1100. It's just a date I threw in. But nothing specifically on this branch here of the San Andreas Fault at all. Nothing at all for 4.5. There may have been some smaller ones. I don't know. We can check that another time. But looks like the closest one here was a 4.8 back in 2009. Just off the Brawley seismic zone and just off of the San Andreas Fault here, the southern branch. But specifically on it, not a whole lot. Good cluster up here to the north. Of course, this area builds a lot of strain stressed off of the southern segment here. When this thing is pretty well locked, we get that transfer of pressure to not only nearby faults, but potentially also into other segments there, because this is a major plate boundary here, folks. The North American Pacific plate boundary. You get these fault systems here. They're on the Pacific side. They build up. They build up a lot of stress as well. But what's in the middle? The plate boundary is the main spot for the most built-up pressure along any area, and that's it's quiet. No 4-pointers on it specifically, and specifically on this section right here, nada. So if we see like a 4.5 on it anytime soon or anytime in the near future, I would, who knows, it could be a couple minutes later, it could be an hour later, it could be a couple days later, and then we could see the big one. It's not really a forecast, but a kind of what if scenario if we happen to see a 4.5, or maybe possibly even a 4-pointer on this segment of the San Andreas Fault. Could be definitely well be a foreshock. So right now, that's not the case. But regionally, as a whole, North American plate here, and specifically around this area, seeing quite a bit of built-up pressure. So we'll watch that zone pretty closely. I do have one of the stations here. It's going to be this guy right here, station called Barrett, where the hand is running on the live stream. That one right there will be situated right about the vicinity of this area. Just I think it's in between Elsinore and the San Jacinto fault zone is where that station's at. And it looks like it may have picked up that 1.4 that came in here at 1426. 1426.20. Let's double check the timestamp here. No, this is actually a different quake here. That's a newer quake coming in there to the, we got Yellowstone kicking up as well. So, see, it's all kind of kicking up currently during this update video, just kind of reassuring the stress out here along the North American plate. That's an earthquake there at Yellowstone, Lake Yellowstone. Not for sure how big, but it pretty much flatlined the amplitude counts over here. More than likely not super big, but it could be maybe a 1.5, 2 maybe, 2-pointer, very localized to the Yellowstone area. But this earthquake is a newer one, and I'm not for certain where it's at as far as its exact location. Last night when I was watching the stream here and the seismographs, we had this guy come in 4.2 into that same station I'm just showing you guys here, the Barrett station, and couldn't figure out exactly where it was coming from. It took the USGS a good half hour to list this earthquake down here. So they've been a little slow. This earthquake right here looks like it could be a lot bigger than a 1.4, and it's got to be because of that timestamp here. 1146 is where they have the 1.4, and this kicks in about 1950. This is UTC time, got to remember. So that's going to be 1946 right here, 1946 UTC time, and these seismographs have UTC times up here. So technically, if that was the earthquake being picked up, it would be showing up right about here, but it's not. So this is a separate quake somewhere, and a little bit bigger than the 1.4, obviously. But it takes them a little bit to list it up here on the map. Let's see if this has been refreshed. Yeah, just nothing yet. So either way, Southern California, definitely be on watch today. Yellowstone National Park. Let me go back over here and see what we got. See, that's kicking up around Lake Yellowstone, which is over here. I'm really surprised. I don't actually see a Lake Yellowstone in here. Lake Butte, but the station I'm specifically looking for is Lake Yellowstone. I don't see anything coming in yet, but obviously it's there on the Lake Yellowstone station, picking it up pretty nicely. So we'll check back on that. I don't think it's anything big, but either way, some activity kicking up out here, and I think we need to watch this area until we see some major adjustment further west. And you can pretty much draw a line here across the map in this type of fashion. We'll split it pretty much right about here. It seems not the best straight line, huh? Oh, goodness. But until we see something further over here, I think we definitely need to watch this area pretty closely here, folks. Definitely. All right, let me jump off of here real quick and see what else we need to cover. Still kind of running with that thing. I need to get me a what are they called? It's called kind of like a sketch pad. Right now I'm just using this built-in program. It's called Epic Pen, and it's pretty cool. I mean, it's very minimally intrusive here to the screen. It just kind of sits off to the side, and I can draw and whatnot, different sizes, but I'm doing it with the mouse. So, trying to draw your name or anything with a mouse is kind of a little hard. So I need to get me some type of input device that I can draw on, which is much easier than using the mouse here. Just can't remember exactly what they're called, so I'll look into that hopefully. If anyone knows, let me know in the comments. I'll definitely check it out. All right, so moving on here, the PNSN network, remember yesterday, had about 20 epicenters here in Northern California. No subsequent earthquake activity. But prior to that, we had a pretty large uptick, about 323 epicenters there, into the southern end of the Cascadia, Northern California region. And still not a whole lot of adjustment going on as far as earthquake activity upstream goes. But a lot of times we see these large tremors indicating a lot of pressure out here along the Cascadia and the North American plate in general. Let's check out the Mount Rainier area. This has been an area of interest because of a little swarm that's been kicking up there on the northeastern flank there of the volcano. But we'll see how it looks. Doesn't look super active. Got a couple very small spikes. This area right here looks like some wind events. Now I know I think they're getting quite a bit of rain and snow while we remain. Oh goodness, it's 71 degrees right now here in California. Here at my place, here on the weather station, it shows 66 in Chico outside where I live. But it's 71 in my backyard weather station, which is not good for end of November. We should easily be cool and rainy, maybe even foggy. But it's sunny. It's supposed to be 75 today, and no rain in sight. All the rain's going to be pretty much Oregon northward. So I'm not a happy camper. Rain makes me happy, not boring sunshine. Let me tell you, I keep saying that I'm not a fair weather guy because I'm not. I don't like boring sunshine in the wintertime. It's supposed to be cold, rainy. I'd even love for some snow. Every time I say that, everyone's like, no, you wouldn't. You don't know what you have to deal with. Yes, I do. I would love to go outside and chop some wood or shovel the driveway. Go back inside, warm up, make some hot cocoa, go do it again. See, I'd love something like that. That's my type of fun. Not going outside, dry, hot, 75 degrees. Everything's dead. All right, where was I? I kind of got lost there for a second in my own thoughts. So, yeah, there's some definite wind events up there throughout the Cascades. And this is just right now. Overnight, it does pick up in the throughout the mountainous areas. But there's a pretty large system that's going to come through and bring quite a bit of wind up there to that area, and some rain and snow. But we're left kind of high and dry here in this area. I kind of want to show you guys just for fun rain accumulation here over the next 5 days or so, 10 days. Look how much rain Oregon and Washington are going to get up here. That's a lot. Up through the Cascades, I'm sure a lot of snow as well. Here in Northern California, if I lived outside of Crescent City, we'd be getting rain. But down here in the Sacramento Valley, it's kind of like Death Valley. And this is a huge rain shadow for when systems come down out of the northwest like that. These mountains, the Siskiyous, the Coast Range, suck out all the moisture and leave this valley, the Sacramento Valley, dry as can be. So nothing at all over the next 10 days. We've got cooler temperatures coming in. Whoop-de-doo. But, I don't like our position here on the map. It is not good, especially during a La Nina, triple La Nina pattern. This is a third La Nina year. So who knows? I mean, this could be one of our driest winters on record. Even worse than the past year. So I'm not happy about that. All right. Yeah, it's pretty depressing. Alrighty, moving on to solar weather activity. Got green. Who doesn't love greenery, right? I'm a big fan of greenery. But when it comes to solar weather, neutral conditions, not good for those that like to look up at the night sky and see some auroras or talk about some space weather events. But right now we're pretty boring. Not a whole lot going on. No major coronal holes facing us. As far as the sunspots go, let me see if we got any progression with those. Doesn't look like it. In fact, it looks about the same as it did yesterday. Not a whole lot of complex magnetic instability in those sunspots currently. And 45% chance for a C flare. I think that's being somewhat lenient. M flare 10%. X flare around 1 or less. But that's about it, folks. I mean, nothing really happening across the solar department. Notice down here we are getting a little bit of increasing density and speed, almost like a CME or something's hitting us. And that could be from anything. We did have, let me see what we had for coronal holes. We had that large one. But it's hard to say exactly where that's coming from. Not really expecting anything at all. But maybe this is just some residual CME stuff that's heading towards the Earth, or just barely glancing the Earth here on the magnetic field. Either way, a little bit of spiky elevated conditions here. Unexpected. As far as any major solar weather events, definitely not forecasted whatsoever. All right, folks. Again, happy Thanksgiving to all those out there. I am definitely thankful for my family, friends, my YouTube community. Definitely appreciate every single one of you guys. Appreciate the mods. Appreciate the members. Appreciate every subscriber and watcher and viewer out here. So definitely going to be giving thanks out there today for that. All right, folks, just stay safe out there. Let's see what we got here. I'm going to shrink that a little bit. I'll work with it. Anyway, we'll chat you guys a little bit later tonight. I will be here standing by. Even though it's Thanksgiving here in the States, I will be watching and monitoring every single thing out here, along with the earthquake activity today and the increasing movement. Looks like let me see here. Almost looks like they showed that 2.4. That was showing up on that seismograph, the Barrett seismograph station, but I don't think so. I think that's a little bit different of an earthquake. But either way, looking at that graph, you can see these darker lines there indicating some earthquake activity, but away from this seismograph station. So we'll watch it, folks, and definitely report back on it. Hawaii, not a whole lot happening in Hawaii. I forgot to cover it. The only earthquake out there shows a 2.4. So nothing really going on currently there on the Big Island. We'll definitely keep an eye on it, though, and report back tonight. Have a good one, folks. We'll catch you guys a little bit later on. Peace out.